And we have to make specifications for around 40 odd equipments.
Okay.
Problem is this, we do not have those equipments. Some equipments
So
are,
bike you have looked at, we had demonstrated in Banaras one solution, like a firefighting bike.
bike. That one we require.
So we are in touch with him. So I'll also put you in touch with my team. So they have the specifications already available somewhere. We can do that. I mean, officially to do that.
A very good afternoon to all. I welcome you again for the further deliberations of this day. My curiosity has no bounds, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you as we move towards the next application tool to be discussed today. Indigenous technologies in focus, new dimensions in disaster response. A very apt topic for post-lunch session. The moderator for this session is Mr. Rahul Nair, Vice President, Agni Invest India. Sri Rahul Nair leads the Agni Mission and Emerging Technology Commercialization Program from the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India as Vice President at Invest India. Agni converges India innovators, emerging technologies to enterprise, government and non-profits, upgrading capability and competitiveness. The mission team determines industry and government priorities and pinpoints, engages world-class technologies across Indian startup and R&D innovation networks, and unites these for economic and social impact. Sri Rahul Nair previously developed National Digital Strategy at the Office of the Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Anti-Fragile Governance Innovation Platforms at the Ministry of Rural Development, Rural Digital Service Models at Bharat Broadband, and Social Innovation and Digital Empowerment Initiatives at the Office of the Advisor to the Prime Minister. Sir holds a Master's in Public Policy from Oxford University, an MPhil in Technology Policy from Cambridge University, and a Bachelor's in Mechanical Engineering from Madras University. Sri Rahul Nair was appointed member of the expert group on information technology and cyber security at the Ministry of Rural Development and member convener to the National Innovation Council's Media Innovation Group. Now I request Sri Rahul Nair to take over the session as moderator.
Try this one, sir, with your permission. Inside. Oh, in that case, I think I'll use this one answer. Thank you. Good afternoon to you all. It's a great pleasure to be here today and a great privilege to be sitting beside the Director General NDRF, Shri Atul Karwal, and his officers, and all of you gathered over here. It has also been Agni's privilege to work with the National Disaster Response Force over the last couple of years to explore how technology can upgrade disaster response. My name is Rahul Nair. I head the Agni mission from the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. This is executed in partnership with Invest India under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, DPIIT, where I have the honor of being Vice President. We have today with us a remarkable panel of experts from every sector, from academia, from research and development, from the startup world as well. We will be engaging a set of critical questions about how technology plays a role in disaster response. Now, there is perhaps no other organization in the country, very few in the country aside from NDRF, which, like NDRF, has to deal with the question of risk and of uncertainty. When NDRF deploys its forces and its men, it does not often know the circumstances into which it is getting. It knows, as we've recently seen in the tragic earthquake in Turkey, that every minute is of essence. They do not know what their men are going to have to endure, and they do not know how their men are going to have to adapt in a post-disaster scenario as the hours wear on.
Men and women.
And women, I should particularly add. And NDRF has the tremendous honor of being, it's a great honor to have NDRF pioneering the role of women, of course, in the forces. That means that the incredibly far-sighted approach that NDRF has taken under the visionary leadership of Director General Sahab, which is to try and understand how to reconfigure and transform an organization and a force to deal with this risk and uncertainty from the start point of what technology can do. This is why that effort and that vision is so important. It will define Indian disaster response, and I might add, since NDRF is the world's largest such force, how the world responds to disaster in the years to come. Within that strategic context, the idea of how do you upgrade an organization to deal with risk and uncertainty using technology as your basic premise, it is my very great pleasure today to welcome and to invite our superb panel of technical and technological specialists, all of them pioneers in different fields of innovation. We have with us Dr. P.K. Srivastav from DGRE under DRDO, the Defense Geoinformatics Research Establishment, who will be speaking to us about how technology can be used for avalanche early warning, a serious challenge particularly in India's mountain states, and the search for buried victims. We'll be inviting from the world of industry and startups, Dr. Anirudh Roy, CTO at Genesis, who will be talking to us about GIS and geospatial technologies. I've got it. Thank you. Understood. We'll be inviting from NDRF to provide us with an operational and a tactical perspective, which is where the technology must really be useful if it is to be of any value. Shri Suresh Kumar Dral, Commandant of the 15th Battalion of NDRF and leader of a number of NDRF teams, therefore, within that battalion. We'll be inviting Captain Nikuj Parashar, a former sailor, now to our great satisfaction, an innovator and startup driver who leads Sagar Defense Engineering and who will be talking to us about robotics and their use in disaster management. And we will, from the world of research and development and academia, in this particular case, we have the pleasure of inviting Professor Manan Suri of IIT Delhi, an artificial intelligence specialist, who will be talking about how artificial intelligence and machine learning will be used to be able to cope with disasters, both to preempt them and most certainly in the context of the NDRF, to respond to them, to deliver more efficient, effective, precise rescue. It is my great pleasure now to invite each of these panelists up for their opening, for their speeches and for their presentations. May I please check, shall I read through, would you like me to introduce them in more detail, or will we have that by a protocol officer, sir? Shall I go ahead and do so? So if I may please invite Dr. Praveen Kumar Srivastav to please take the dais. Dr. Srivastav is an M.Tech from the G.B. Pant University of Agriculture and got his PhD in applied mechanics from IIT Delhi. He's a veteran at DRDO, having joined in 1997 at their snow and avalanche study establishment in Manali, which then is, of course, is now the DGRE. He spent over 25 years in DRDO, dealing with snowpack evolution modeling, microstructure characterization, and automated detection of avalanches, among various other areas. He will be speaking to us now about how technology can be used for avalanche early warning and for the search of buried victims. Dr. Srivastav, may I kindly welcome you and invite you to speak.
I once again thanks Shri Iyer for his kind words. Distinguished panelists and participants from NDRF, SDRF, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. Let me first express my thanks to Director General NDRF for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on application of various technologies for avalanche early warning and buried victim search. Now, when we talk about avalanches, all of us know that avalanches are nothing but sudden and catastrophic failure of mountain snowpack, and huge amount of snow moves downward on the slope. It may contain rock, soil, tree, etc. The most important thing is that it can exert pressure up to, I think there is some problem. Yeah, can you hear me now? Am I audible to all of you now? Yeah, okay. So it can exert pressure up to huge pressure of 50 ton per meter square, which causes great destruction. If we see the spatial extent and severity of the problem, almost all of our mountainous states, starting from J&K, Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, and some areas of Arunachal Pradesh are almost prone to avalanches disaster. Now, if you see the severity of the hazard, this graph I'm showing you the number of fatalities over the year right from 1970 to 2019-20. And for your information, this year till date, we have almost 36 casualties because of snow avalanches in different parts of Himalaya. And this includes 23 mountaineers who lost their lives in Draupadi Gadenda mountaineering expedition. Now, when we talk about what are the hazard mitigation techniques, the avalanche hazard mitigation techniques can be divided into two broad categories. One is the structural measures. Now, structural measures is a part of disaster risk reduction. So we do the hazard zonation mapping of different areas, try to find out which are the areas where developmental activities can be done, which are prohibited. And also we try to stabilize the snow right in the formation zone of the avalanches by means of various type of control structures. Now, if we talk about non-structural measures, primarily we are in the domain of avalanche early warning and also artificial triggering. So today I'll be focusing more on the avalanche early warning, which DGRE, Defense Geoinformatics Research Establishment, provided daily avalanche warning bulletins to various users, which include Indian Army, Air Force, BRO, and NDMA also, and various SDMA in different states also. Now, before we venture into what do we mean by for early warning system, we have to understand that there are various categories of early warning system depending on the lead time we get for the response. So if we talk about alarm system are primarily system which doesn't have any inbuilt intelligence, it just monitor the process parameters. So if any event is occurring, it tries to measure the various process parameter of this of the geohazard event, while forecasting system, it does use various kind of AI/ML model. It uses various type of precursors. Now, unfortunately, avalanche like earthquake doesn't have very distinct precursors based on which we can develop well-defined alarm system or forecasting system. Now, if we talk about regional avalanche forecasting system, which DGRA has made it operational for various Himalayan states, so we have a network of surface observatories, network of automatic weather stations in different states. The data from these observatories and automatic weather stations comes to our location at RDC, Research and Development Center, Chandigarh, where we have developed various type of AI/ML model. The data crunching is being done on real-time basis, and by 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, we disseminate the warnings to various users. Warning is in the form of regional avalanche warning. Basically, we try to categorize the hazard level in 5 different categories. In terms of color coding also, and we try to provide the user the forecast in the form of API maps also. Now, only problem with this information is very useful for planning the operation by various users, but the scale of the spatial and temporal scale are quite coarse. So if you want to mount any rescue or any alarm information based on this system, then this information is like generic in nature. Now, when we talk about alarm system or requirement of alarm system, other than the regional avalanche forecasting, there are certain predefined areas which are affected by avalanches continuously year after year. For example, avalanche affected vital transportation corridors, critical installations or military camps, BRO infrastructure, or for that matter, vulnerable hydropower projects in high altitude area. And again, we need to reduce the uncertainty in regional avalanche forecast model. Now, if you want to develop an alarm model, alarm system for avalanche early warning, then we have to measure the process parameters. Here I'm showing you the typical cross-section of avalanches. So you see there is a air blast ahead of moving snow mass. And then there is a dense layer, and above the dense layer, there is a saltation layer. Now, this air blast ahead of the moving snow mass, it generates infrasonic signatures in atmosphere. Secondly, because of friction, the moving snow mass impart seismic energy to the ground itself. And the third parameter which can be measured is the movement of the snow mass itself. So based on these three parameters, we can think of developing early warning or alarm system for real-time detection of avalanches. For example, if you have a very long avalanche path of 2 to 3 kilometers, and the total travel time is 2 to 3 minutes. So if we can detect in first few seconds the start and movement of avalanches, we can generate alarm very well. So DGRE has worked in this area, and we have successfully developed infrasonic sensor-based real-time avalanche detection and alarm system. We have used COTS microphone array, and we have developed in-house array signal processing utility to pinpoint, locate in azimuth also, and the magnitude of the avalanche event. This system has been tested at various locations in Himachal Pradesh and J&K. In last to last winter, this was tested in Sonamugh Zulila axis also. And second, as I said, that moving snow mass imparts seismic energy to the ground. So we have also evaluated the performance of geophones in their efficacy for picking up these seismic signatures which are imparted in the ground. So in one of the future project, which is just about to be mounted from March 2023, we are going to instrument the entire Sonamugh Zulila axis up to the Zulila Pass. It is a 22-kilometer road axis, and it is affected by 36 registered avalanche sites. So we'll be installing 2 infrasonic sensor array, one near the Baltal camp, from where the Amarnath Yatra starts, and entire this from Sonamugh to Zulila top, up to Gumri place, this entire axis will be monitored in real time for the occurrence of the avalanches and generation of alarm also, with the help of infrasonic sensor array and geophone sensor array also. Now, the third thing, the detection of avalanche movement also. Now, in this, we are evaluating the performance of microwave radars. Radar permanently scans the targeted slope for avalanche release, and once it detects the movement, it can also track the movement, this microwave radars. Now, in this direction, the working principle is basically the Doppler frequency shift. So we are utilizing the frequency shift to detect the onset of avalanche occurrences. The typical deployment scenario is like you have a typical mountain slope which requires to be monitored. Radar is deployed up to a distance of 2 to 3 kilometers from that slope, and it continuously monitors the slope. The frequency which we are evaluating is between 10 to 10.6 gigahertz. And then, in order to study the performance in extreme condition, we have installed for the first time in country one of the COTS avalanche radar at one of the forward location at Sikkim last year itself. It's a Bumford location in Sikkim. And in order to, this is a COTS item, imported item, we are also taking indigenized development of avalanche detection radar with our sister lab, Electronics and Radar Development Establishment, Bangalore, and in collaboration with IIT Roorkee also. I won't go into much technical details of what are the different subcomponents of avalanche detection radar. And similarly, if we compare what are the main technologies for avalanche detection and alarm generation, so primarily there are 3 infrasonic sensor array, geophone sensor array, and pulse Doppler radar. Now we have tried to, in this table, I have tried to show the potential of each of these technologies for their forecasting application and for their alarm generation. So we found that if we want to monitor one very critical avalanche site, then radar scores the highest point. Now, if we want to monitor entire avalanche-affected transportation corridor, for example, Sonamugh Zozila axis or Chokibal Tangdhar axis, where you have to monitor more than 50 avalanche sites. In that case, much cheaper solution is the infrasonic sensor array, and we have developed in-house expertise also for this one. Now, coming to the next part of my presentation, now, in spite of avalanche forecasting and alarm system and imparting training to various users, still we have casualties. Now, if you want to rescue the buried avalanche victim, the time is of the most essence. Now, this graph here shows you if we are able to detect and extract the person within first 15 minutes, then his chances of survival is at least 50%. Beyond 17, 18 minutes, the chances of survival drastically drops down. Now, so most important is quick localization of buried victim is extremely important for survival. So what are the different existing avalanche victim rescue technologies? We can divide the existing techniques into 3 main domains. One is the individual safety equipment, which a person who is moving in the snowbound avalanche-prone areas, helmet, body armor, avalanche airbags, avalanche. And then if a group is moving in these areas, then we have group rescue devices, which we commonly known as avalanche victim devices. It's nothing but 457 kilohertz transceivers. And third one is the professional rescue, the record detector. Now, this slide just give you an idea about why the electronics devices scores much to the fine probing or coarse probing method. So in this direction, what DGRE is doing, DGRE is evaluating one COTS equipment, record detector, harmonic radar, which Army is also evaluating, and we are also going into indigenized development of this radar, again in collaboration with LRD and IIT Roorkee. Now, I won't go into technical specification detail, but my message is that disaster risk reduction, integrated disaster risk reduction encompasses both the monitoring, both the response, as well as the preparation for the disaster also. So I'll finish my talk here. Sorry for overshooting my assigned time. Yeah.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, Dr. Srivastava. Very, very much appreciated. We particularly appreciate your insights on the preventive measures that technology can take. I wonder if we may sequence through the speakers first and invite each of them to speak, and then we can, in the last stages, open up for questions. Then we can get a more integrated response. Thank you again for your time and your talk. It's now my great pleasure to invite Dr. Anirudh Roy, CTO at Genesis, who will be talking to us about geospatial technology. Dr. Roy, again, is uniquely qualified to speak on this topic. He holds a PhD from IIT ISM and indeed an MBA in disaster management. His work has explicitly focused on landslides using geospatial technologies in the Himalaya in Northeast India and the Western Ghats. He's also currently co-chairman of the National Geospatial Committee of FICCI and a member of the Geospatial Committee of the Indian Bureau of Standards, BIS. So Dr. Roy, we welcome you and we welcome your comments, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rahul. Good afternoon to all. It's my pleasure to talk here and get this opportunity to speak, which coincides with my academic background and my professional experience. I specifically thank DG NDRF and also DIG Train Ops, specifically to structure and give the suggestions that what is actually required for this audience. The basic presentation, the way I will just introduce who we are, what are the kind of disasters that specifically is found in India, what is the kind of geospatial data and technologies prevalent today, what specific response agility should be shown using technology, and what are the best practices worldwide. And of course, what are the futuristic challenges and what is the way forward, basically the solutions. We are an Indian company. We are here for last 25 years. We are into geospatial mapping. We give solutions to Googles of the world, Apple Maps, Facebook, all over these companies for last so many years. And we have put our representation to the government of India that as a private company, Indian private companies are not allowed to do the mapping because of the restrictions. I'm glad to inform you that 15th February 2021 and in December 2022, Government of India has brought a policy wherein the private Indian companies are free to map every inch of the land without any permissions from anybody except for the negative list which is strategic to the country. Other aspect what we have done after that, we have committed that we will be creating 3D digital twin for 100 cities of this country to start with. And we'll talk more about that, and we have got multiple innovative solutions. In my view, the way we look into it, there are primarily three kinds of disasters. One is the natural ones, second one is the accidental, and third one is typically the intentional attacks, which is done by the miscreants. When we talk about the losses that we incur worldwide, 90% of the total disaster losses actually comes from the hydrometeorological origin, which otherwise means that the cyclones, the thunderstorms, the floods, the drought, the heat waves, these are the major events which are actually getting affected. How do we cope up with that? Primarily, we require data. So first aspect, the weather. Very interestingly, we should know how to get the best of the weather data so that we can do the best of the forecasting. And today we have got the IMD, but the best part is that we do have World Meteorological Organization, WMO. At least 20 sources are there in this world. They are free to provide this kind of data. It is up to the Agni mission or the innovators of this country how we can assimilate the data and create more accurate early warning system. Other aspect is the terrain. What is the topography of the land? Because if the water flows to the path of least resistance, very detailed digital elevation model needs to be created. You have heard in the past, many speakers spoke about the geospatial area, that how floods can help. Perhaps what we do not understand and appreciate, while the people are there, the technology is there, best of the models are there, the professionals are there, but the vertical accuracy which all of us in this country are attempting is to the range of 10 to 15 meters. That means 10 to 15 meters of flood we can't predict. That inaccuracy we are dealing with, irrespective of all the good work that has been done. So the fact is that when we use LiDAR kind of technology and we use then fly, we get centimeter level accuracy, and that is where these two elements are very, very critical for India. Coming to the geospatial data and technologies, any incident happens, we are geared with this kind of maps, which is a 2D map. This is a Google map. I've just taken and kept it somewhere. And with this reference, people go to the accurate spot. And you know, when you call up Uber, the vehicle comes, but it may be in the next society. So there is a GPS inherent error, which is always there in the 2D maps and related aspects. When the first responder, or maybe the disaster management for managers from the NDRF goes to the field, this is what he or she carries, and in the field when they go, they find this is the reality. It's very difficult to find what is there in 2D and what is there in the 3D. So that's what I'm trying to emphasize, the need for the 3D maps in this country. There are various technologies. You heard about the satellite aerial survey. There are terrestrial mobile mapping system. There are backpack lidars in the narrow lens, and various kind of products can be generated. Very interestingly, the fact that I spoke about this National Geospatial Policy 2022, the whole object is that we should be Atmanirbhar Bharat, or the self-reliant India. So Indian companies are now being promoted to create this kind of fine granular data using the aircrafts, the mobile mapping systems, and what best one can do to support them. Two of the platforms that we have created, number one, 360-degree panoramic imaging. 7 lakh line kilometer of roads that we are aiming now for the whole of country. And part of this data we have licensed to Google. So data ownership is lying with us. Anybody who requires this kind of street view data can always take and consult us, and we can provide. Third aspect is our ambitious program on the 3D digital twin, which is for the urban India. This is almost like a smart city affair, but we'll see. Can you just put it forward, because the slide is not proceeding? Next slide. Yes. So two of the aspects which are very important. One is that you get God's view, which is from the top. What you get from the aircraft, this is one way of doing, and what is the man view, what you see around you. Both these things we have put in one place, and we created an immersive view through this kind of platform. Next, please. This is the pan-India data, ONOBO, world with no boundaries, and this is what we are not marketing it, but we are building very robust solutions along with the startups and innovators. sorry. So this is the kind of visual navigation. When you want to know what is the condition of a specific house, is that structural condition of a building is good? Without going to the field, sitting at the office, one can actually go through the streets of the corridor and then know the condition of the houses, what we call rapid visual screening. This is the exercise we did some time back with the National Institute of Disaster Management. This is the kind of work which we have done for the Worli, and there are a number of applications, including the flooding, which we have done last year. This is what we
Sorry, Dr. Roy, maybe just a couple more minutes and then we can come to your comments also in the main discussion. Thank you.
Yes. So this is the narrow lens of Kanpur, how one can use it. And for enhancing the field force, we felt that there are technologies which we do have now, that how the field forces, if they go to a specific area, then how they can be mapped, how they can be tracked, how they can be monitored. Specific grids are there. It's very difficult to manage the field forces. So who is responsible what, which are the persons who are going to which place managing what, from both web-centric and as well as the mobile-based devices, one can find out. This is not an imagery, this is not an actual picture, this is a LiDAR-based hill simulation. Similarly for the firefighters, which are the areas one can actually, streets the fire tenders can go, we pre-map that area and provide that. If you see the indoor navigation, Taj incidents, if you remember, nobody had clue what is there inside. Now the technology provides us to get an indoor navigation view also. Underground utility, people don't know what is there below the ground. There is a need for where is the gas leakage. In spite of all that, is there any stormwater blockage which is happening, and because of that flooding happening? There is a need to do that. This kind of augmented reality technologies are present where you can actually see what is there below if you map it freehand. These are the recent Joshimath's land subsidences. We sent a troop and they have created the major cracks, and we have supported the administration. Last few, and I think...
If I may, Dr. Roy, please do forgive me. Perhaps we can come to best practices as part of the panel discussion, because we'll then have officers speaking as well.
That's right. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Roy. Much appreciated. And we very much appreciate the inputs, especially towards the end on how technology can be integrated with decision-making on the ground with your photorealistic 3D maps. It is my great pleasure to now invite our third panelist to provide his presentation. This particular panelist has a special distinction. He's an officer of the NDRF serving. Shri Satish Kumar Dhral joined the force in 2002 as an assistant commandant. He is then deployed in border management and in internal security and in VIP security. He's deployed to on the United Nations missions to Congo and has had training from the Louisiana State Police Training Academy in the US in 2006. He was promoted commandant in 2018 and took over the newly raised 15th Battalion of the NDRF in March 2021. He will be speaking to us about capacitating teams, how we can use e-learning for capacity building. Welcome, Commandant, and we look forward to your comments.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, sir. First of all, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my presentation on e-learning for capacity building. Although e-learning and capacity building are two different subjects, but in today's scenario, when everything is being digitalized, there is need to combine these two for the better management and the desirable outcome. So I'll be covering my presentation in 4 parts. As a capacity building and why it is required, benefits of capacity buildings, role of e-learning in capacity building, and the worldwide practices all over the world. So let's start with what is capacity building. So all of us, we are aware that it's a continuous process of developing and strengthening the skills of officials, stakeholders, and the community to perform in case of any emergencies or disasters occurs. And to achieve this, regular exercise, regular awareness programs, training, coordination, skill development, mentorship, and familiarization need to be conducted. I'm not, due to paucity of time, I'm not going in detail point-wise of these things. Yes, these are self-explanatory basically. But let me inform this August gathering that NDRF is, conducting all these exercises throughout the year, throughout the country with various stakeholders, and the results are quite fruitful. Now, why it is required? We need to reduce the response time. We need to reduce the fatalities. We need to work with limited resources or till the arrival of specialist organizations like NDRF, SDRF, fire services, etc. We need to know the disaster risk reduction measures like preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigations. There are numerous benefits of capacity building. Few of them are highlighted here. Capacity building is, when you have a good setup of capacity building in your organizations, then the performance of your staff, their capacity, their capability, their potential, it also arises, and the organization get benefited as a whole. And as a result of which, leaders also come forward and they learn how to work in a team spirit. And when you have a foster mechanism of promoting your subordinates, your staff, then they have the desire to work, with more perfection, and the results, are on the higher sides. The last and important point in this thing is the innovations. Innovations plays an, important part in the capacity building of a country. We must support innovations. Unless, we keep on doing innovations, we won't be able to live up to the expectation of the people of the country. Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India scheme is the best example of capacity building. Daily we are witnessing a new startups with a new technology and new equipment. Don't go far away. Many of us are sitting here in this hall itself, and we in NDRF are also doing innovations regularly under the guidance of our DG Sri Atul Garwal sir. As a result of it, our rescuers, they are making various kind of devices to be used amongst various kinds of disasters. You might have heard about many successful borewell operations conducted by NDRF across the country. And let me tell you, the most of the equipments which were used during those operations were made by our own rescuers only. The second part of this presentation is the role of e-learning in capacity building. The first thing is that what is e-learning? It's a digital platform basically to facilitate communication and learning with online users. It can be in the form of e-journal, e-books, simulations, videos or multimedia resources, virtual experiences. Now, why e-learning is required for capacity building? It breaks the barrier of distance. One can do it from anywhere across the world, anytime. More resilient, dynamic, technology-driven force is always available. Data transmission and updation is a matter of a click in today's 5G generation. There is no need of a teacher or instructor. It bridges the gap between the traditional educational models and the modern technology-driven modern digital workforce, basically, by providing flexible and continuous learning opportunities. Now, some of the features of e-learning, why it is important. The first and foremost thing is the cost effectiveness.
Maybe 3 minutes more, Commandant? 3 minutes more.
No problem.
All I'm saying.
Cost effective. It's very cheap, technical friendly. One can download and use it from anywhere across the world, as I told earlier also. It can be explained with the help of animations, images, simulations, easily accessible. You can use it again and again until unless you get perfection. Information is authentic. It's learning centric, basically. It's a good tool to, for self-learning. One can use it anywhere and anytime. Now, these are some of the best practices being adopted by people across the world. The pictures are self-explanatory, basically. I'll not go in detail. LinkedIn,
Coursera, Unacademy, Byju's, number of users are there, 150 million users for the Byju's. And the most important is the I Got Karam Yogi platform that is now trading by the government of India. I just want to share one interesting example with this video. Recently one thing has happened. एक building जो है हजरतगंज लखनऊ में एक building collapse हुआ. All that is through a kind of a video, a television serials is there, Doraemon called Doraemon. तो बच्चा जो है building collapse हुआ और वो बच्चा उसमें से उसको बचा के निकाला गया. Then the boy he told कि उसने Doraemon serial को देखा था और उसमें बताया गया था कि when some earthquake or some kind of disaster ऐसे occurs होते हैं तो you have to go to the corner of the building or you have to go under the bed or tables. And without wasting a fraction of a second, that why he went under the bed and he saves himself. I think this is one of the best example of e-learning. So to conclude, I can say e-learning is playing a vital role in all the fields, and it is helping us incredibly as far as NDRF is concerned, and that is why, as per the direction of our DG sir, NDRF is also in the process of making a e-learning platform for the 40 lakh NSS volunteers and communities, and hopefully will soon achieve that target or that milestone, and will come to the expectation of the people of the country, and will be able to reduce the disasters, and will be successful in all the fields. And that's all from my side. Thanking you for your patient hearing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commandant, both for your comments and for your near-perfect timing. We really appreciate that. All the technologies that we're looking at today and that the panelists will be referring to now are only useful if they help officers like you in the field and your men and women in the field. So we appreciate your input particularly. It's now my pleasure to welcome Captain Nikunj Parashar, CEO of Sagar Defence Engineering. Captain Parashar is a former sailor, merchant marine, and an alumni of IIM Ahmedabad. He's now CEO and founder of Sagar Defence Engineering and Oceanos BV in Rotterdam, which was recently awarded with a national award in the robotics sector by DPIIT, Government of India, and by the National Security Guard in September 2022 under the Home Affairs Ministry for developing countermeasures for improvised explosive devices, IEDs. Captain Parashar will be talking to us now about UAS and drones and robotics. Welcome, Captain. I will put my hand up in the 4th minute just to give you a sense of where we are.
Thank you so much, Rahul. At the onset, thank you so much, Honorable DG Sir Shri Atul. Sir, thank you, Rahul, and the August gathering here. As Rahul stated when he started off, and he said that there are a lot of technologies out there, but it's important that what comes to your use is that plays the leading role here. And Kabir ji ka ek doha hai कि बड़ा हुआ तो क्या हुआ जैसे पेड़ खजूर पंथी को छाया नहीं फल आगे अति दूर. In today's time, when we are talking about technologies, and we coming from a technology and robotics sector, there are a huge amount of technologies. From drones to unmanned boats, or when you're talking about urban air mobility for medical evacuation. And this is something I proudly state that, we have shown it across to the NDRF. But the biggest challenge is how do we convince NDRF that they need it? And this is something we all have to think about. Now, where the technology is actually leading to it. So as an innovator, we may say that there is a technology aspect which could be really helpful, which is going to solve your purpose, but is the end user will accept it? Is the end user really find it feasible? And this is one question which keeps going in the mind. And there is a video for this. I think the video is not playing it. Can we play it across? Yes. Now this is, somebody spoke about immersive view. Now imagine in real time, when you have a drone flying up across, and this comes across to the director, the on-site director who is looking at the flood areas. With this video, you can actually take the real-time scenario. So when you have a drone which is flying up in the air, without this data inset across to the person on ground, the whole drone operation is useless. So that means if you have a drone, it would have an immersive data input across to the user. So it should have an overlay of the 3D maps across here, real-time designation of marking of target points across. Secondly, we also realized in the time frame that when you have drones across, and especially in flood operations, you can fly it from one place. So it has to come back on a land. So if you're flying these drones and they have to come back and land on a place back on a ground, that means the range of the whole operation is going to come down. How do you do that? Again, a big challenge. That means your further access into the site becomes very difficult. Now, these scenarios, keeping in mind, and as an innovator, as a technocrat, we all have to look into it and give a solution across. So when you are doing this operation, we realize a combination of boats with the drones could really help us out. So tomorrow, when an NDRF goes out there in a flood situation and want to use a technology, can those drones take off from a vessel? Can those drones can be part of an unmanned vessel? So you can have grouping. So you can have one platform doing two different jobs along with a person on a different boat doing the same work. So these are different technology applications we do from time to time. And again, this is again a classic video of that. So in a disaster area, we are actually carrying out platforms which is being remote controlled from a station, and parallel you have a drone which is overlooking across. Now you're not worried whether you have to land back that drone on the land or could it come back on the drone. The same ops can also be carried out on a smart grid which is available with the India. Now this is something as a startup, as a technocrat, we never realized. But as we understood, as we spoke with the team, we understood the real application, because all the actions when we are operating in this reactive situations are reactive. So we need to have technologies also which could be reactive and adaptive to real-time scenarios. So right from immersive data insets, right from real-time operations, also the capability of the platform to handle the ground realities is also equally important. So we just cannot push robotics or technology onto the officers on ground. Can we move on to the next slide, please? And this was a learning. So where we carried out with trials with NDRF along with the Agni mission, and this is something we had never envisaged before, and it was put across to us that how fast your drones can actually take off and land. And these were the boats and ribs. We had never done this trial ever, that landing and taking from smaller ribs. And this is something actual on ground happened. Now, as innovators, we realized again that we need to cater to the criteria of what the forces require, what actually NDRF requires, and not push across the technologies which we are building in-house. So, as a startup, we would say that we have to be also very proactive of listening to the customers, listening to the organization, and then innovate as per their requirements. So that's all from my end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. That was ahead of time, and we very much appreciate the demonstration, including of the technologies that you've demonstrated with the NDRF before. It was very helpful. I'd now like to invite as our final speaker, just before we enter the panel mode of discussion, if we could please invite Professor Manan Suri of IIT Delhi. Professor Suri holds a PhD from INP Grenoble in France and has a master's in from Cornell University, the USA. He heads the Neuromorphic Hardware Research Group at IIT Delhi. He is especially recognized. He's in the MIT 35 under 35 list from the MIT Technology Review. He's one of the world's leading deep tech innovators. He's advised major technology companies and has worked abroad both in Belgium and in France. He'll be speaking to us today about artificial intelligence and machine learning for disaster response and risk management. Please go ahead, Professor. I'm going to put my hand up again in the 4th minute when you're halfway through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rahul, and thank you to the DG sir, NDRF, and Agni team for organizing this nice session. So, I was just thinking about it, and so in today's context, if we are to talk about disasters, it's imperative to talk about disasters along with technology and security. So if the three things are not spoken to or discussed in the same phrase or in the same context, then we'll be missing out on many things. So the three things have to be looked at in the same context. And the topic that I've been assigned to speak here is more on AI. And it will not be an understatement to, it's actually an understatement to say that AI is reaching all realms of our lives. You know, it's a emerging technology. Even if you look at the last few speakers, you know, there were mention of specialized radar sensors for avalanche prediction. There was mention of autonomous boats with drones on them. There was mention of e-learning. There was mention of LiDAR technology. Each and every aspect that the previous four speakers touched, as we speak today, have more than one deployed use cases of AI. So this is the the relevance of AI, and whatever these speakers spoke, they were all cutting edge technologies themselves. So you can see. So I'll skip the intro and just come to the point here that what about AI and disasters? So and this is not what just I'm saying. I tried to curate some data on what academic literature or what R&D across the globe. If you categorize it, studies specifically using AI for in the disaster context or the disaster domain, and this is what the split would look like. Various things are there, hybrid disasters, whether these are droughts, hydrological disasters, and more than 10 distinct types of disasters where AI is beginning to play a role. Now, as if the organization or the institution of NDRF is to look at this, it needs to be looked at in a way, the use case needs to be segregated. There is disaster detection, forecasting, and then post-disaster management, right? So the fact is that all disasters are not abrupt. So there are disasters which have an onset, there are disasters which have some trigger points, and maybe at the last mile or at certain instances, the disasters become abrupt. So AI is that layer where which you can use for as an additional tool for data processing, whatever data you're capturing through various sensors and means. And so an ideal start would be, because again, I would not hesitate to say that AI is not a perfect technology. So the ideal start point would be to target those disasters which have a longer onset period, or which give you enough triggers or enough cues to look at. And cases where you actually don't have much chance is the place where you utilize AI for the post-disaster management or the immediate on-ground response. Okay. I put together one more slide which basically shows that how the, as you change the disaster type, how the nature of data that goes behind the AI or the ML modeling for that disaster changes. So you can see, apologize for the small text, but you can see that as each disaster type changes, the characteristic data that goes into building those models changes quite differently. But there is one common underlying thread here, irrespective of different data types, is that most of these are connected by either remote sensing imagery, satellite imagery, or aerial imagery. So there is a wide scope, or there is a lot to gain if some effort on utilizing AI in the disaster context, specifically for the remote sensing or the aerial imagery or remote sensing or aerial data is used. It's the first big use case that can be capitalized on. And needless to say, when you are working with this kind of data, you get associated with also GIS technologies. So the keywords, the first high-value keywords are GIS, AI, and remote sensing, or aerial sensing for disaster handling over here. So in academia, we ask ourselves that can we do something unique? Can we do something novel? So we set out to do a case study where we asked ourselves, can we find a new kind of disaster which no one else has looked at? Can we build new types of AI models? So very interesting use case that we did was more of a biohazard or a bio disaster. And this is about the health of water bodies. So we built a specialized data set of various water bodies all around the globe. And the water bodies were
Forgive me, Professor, I didn't want to interrupt you earlier, but just in flow, but maybe 3 more minutes if we may.
That's more than enough. So, and what we did is, in this large data set, we tried to predict using AI models whether you can predict the outbreak of avian botulism, which is a disease, a waterborne disease for the migratory birds. And the techniques that were used here were data fusion, various different spectral bands, various different remote sensing data points were used, they were fused, and we were able to successfully predict the onset or the outbreak of diseases. So, there can be various, the point that I'm trying to say, there can be many different contexts of AI use cases. There can be different types of disasters that can be covered, and it's, the last point that I want to make is that, AI and AI-based solutions, if the organizations are to adopt it, they would not work as a black box, or they would not work right out of the box. There are some key ingredients that need to be in place. The first one is that the specific data that the organization needs to maintain. This can be data pertaining to the disaster sensors. You need to have the right kind of infrastructure, you need to have the right kind of compute, the hardware, and you need to have your own customized training, your customized AI training, customized AI models, and libraries. So I'll end with that, and I'll be happy to take any questions in this context.
Thank you very much, Professor. May I please invite everyone to give all our panelists a round of applause for their expertise here. I wonder if I may, with the DG's permission now, proceed to the Q&A and the panel discussion session, part of this particular session. One of the, and I say this without, this is not just Tamiz Tehzeeb, one of the visionary things that NDRF has done today is to bring together a platform of people from different points of expertise and with different kinds of experience. And what that means is that maybe during the panel discussion round, we should leverage that. So what we will do is maybe ask a question each, with just maybe 2-minute responses to each of our panelists pertaining to a point that another panelist has raised. That way we can converge perspective and get a little bit of fusion going. So if I may please start with Dr. Srivastav. We very much appreciated your presentation on avalanche forecasting and on structural responses. And we noted particularly the fact that you're already deploying sensor networks across the 3 different transducer types that you've referred to. Professor Suri at the end had referred to the value of data sets to be able to train his neural networks to be able to go ahead and optimize decision making. Do you feel there's an intersection between the kind of data gathering exercises that institutes like yours do and AI modeling? Is there a potential for convergence there to help NDRF with their planning or with their response of operations?
Actually, I do feel that AI ML modeling techniques would be an integrated part of any type of deployable early warning system or alarm solution. Because whatever means the sensors, we are gathering the data. Now, the main problem is identification of event signature per se and removal of the background noise itself. So we need to collect data in various environmental conditions. For example, I talked about infrasonic sensors, where the infrasonic sound is generated in an atmosphere. It is not much affected by the terrain condition. But in case of geophone, where we are collecting the seismic signature, it is path dependent. So a path dependent avalanche propagation energy will be varying from path to path. So there we need to bring into the AI, which can bind the terrain parameter as well as the ever-changing snowpack condition. Now snow is a layered media. It builds layer by layer. And the microstructure, snow is considered to be one of the most complex engineering material on Earth. Although we call it as a low temperature material, but it exists very close to its melting temperature. So the transformation is very fast. The time scale is of the order of minutes to hours. The strength goes from quite tens of kilopascal drastically to few kilopascal. So we need to integrate, like we have also operationally implemented a one-dimensional snowpack evolution model. Now we are going into 3D model. 3D model means we are trying to develop a model which can give me evolution of the snowpack on the scale of 500 meters. So whether the weak layers are continuous or not, whether the snow thickness is uniform or not, and then superimpose on the underlying terrain. And there again comes the role of AI/ML when we want a next generation avalanche forecast model. So I do feel that integration of the data collection from various sensors and amalgamation with various AI/ML techniques is the way forward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Srivastava. That's very helpful. I wonder if I could then invite Dr. Roy to comment on a point that had been made earlier. So Commandant Dhral had spoken in his, I think, his second or third slide. He said there were two or three factors that matter most to a commander in the field, or to an officer, or to indeed to personnel in the field. One of which was response time, right? And the second was fatality. There were several others, of course. Now, is it possible that the technology in the field of technologies to which you're referring, photorealistic, three-dimensional, mapping, are there ways in which you think specifically that technology can help drive that for a disaster response force to reduce the time, the response time, and therefore try and minimize fatalities?
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting question. So if you see the basics of the disaster management, they tell that you should spend around 85% of your efforts in planning and 15% efforts in responding to that. So plan carefully and act violently. Now, unless and until there is a good plan, you cannot execute. Now, there is a lack of data which is present as of today. Primary need which has got done by the Government of India now, which the earlier speaker in the morning spoke about, is PM Gati Shakti. All the departments should have the coordinated effort to put all the data for a specific area of interest. That is not happening today, but now all the departments are mandated to do that. Number one. Number two, it's very important that response time is directly proportional. If you find what we heard about real time, it is as good as what is actually happening on the field. So the technologies like your mobile and UAV, they are almost like a real time. Minus point, communication is the first thing which gets broken during the disaster. So what are the alternate technologies if the mobile is not working? Should we use edge technology? Should we use satellite data, satellite network, radio communication, ham network? So there are plethora of technologies which are present, and I actually sincerely request Agni to bring similar sessions so that more brainstorming can be done with the right kind of resource and like-minded people to make it happen.
Thank you, Dr. Rai. We'd be delighted to do so, to go into sort of use case development around technology stacks, and we very much appreciate a response. In fact, in use case development, that was my question to Commandant Dhral. One of the, as we said in the, I mentioned in the opening remarks, what defines NDRF is that it is dealing, all of the forces under the Home Ministry have to deal with uncertainty and risk. But NDRF has to deal with a very, very high level of uncertainty. It is deployed when everything is broken down. Entire comms networks are down, everything is down, which means that NDRF is always learning from disaster to disaster how to refine itself and improve itself. The captain had mentioned, Nikunj had mentioned, he'd mentioned the use of drones on the fly. Dr. Roy has talked about, again, trying to develop, use cases around technology stacks. When you are trying to train your people and your personnel, is it possible, do you think, for commanders and for trainers to work with technologists to develop use cases for technology कि ये एक नया यहाँ पे समस्या हमें पेश आया है, ये एक नया मौका है टेक्नोलॉजी के इस्तेमाल में? Is that something that you feel could be explored under training and capacity building?
Yeah, exactly. We can do it, and as I told you earlier, under the guidance of our DG sir, we are innovating many devices for the various kind of disaster, and these things we can inculcate in our training also. That would be better, and just like you were telling us about the UAV drone. We are practicing on we are using it right now. We are using it at the Josimat site also, and the results are overwhelming. And definitely in future also, as and when we'll get this kind of opportunity, we'll do it with the Agni or whatever the institutions are there.
Thank you very much for Commandant. And do you think, just to add to that, if I may, with a couple of minutes, you've done e-learning, obviously, with your personnel. What do you think technologists need to do to make sure that their technology, whoever the technologist might be, is usable to your personnel, that your personnel can learn how to use it?
We are, as I told you, we are making a kind of platform.
Right.
It is very, new for our guys also, our rescuers. But we are working on this thing, and very soon, we'll do it in every kind of our training or exercises. We'll work upon this thing and we'll do it.
So, if I can add a couple of sentences. Some time back, we had done a hackathon where we had pitched our problems to young students of technology institutions, and that also has given us some interesting insights, and we are following up on those. Second thing is that I would request some of the technology companies here to ask to be associated with actual operations.
Yes.
Where they are not really under any threat. There's a building collapse. They can come as observers. They can see us work. They can find out what is bothering us there and give us interesting insights from an observer's point of view that I saw you doing this, I can help you do it better. So it'll be good and interesting for all of you to look at actual operations, provided we don't bring risk to your doorstep, and then give us some interesting things that you can assist us with from your point of view.
Very good suggestion, sir. They also get to know to use their product, come out with bettering their product, sir. So this, if it can be, a portal can be there, technology companies can also volunteer for such kind of operations.
Yes. For an example, Sudesh mentioned the building collapse in Hazratganj, Lucknow. We got out 5 people alive out of that. Once the operation is over, and he wants to show us a small nano drone with anti-collision technology, say, I can send it inside and I can map it for you. Well, let's do it. In an actual building collapse, which is now concluded, everything is taken care of, we are withdrawing now. So without disturbing the operation, you could actually try out some stuff right there in a real life situation.
Rahul sir, can I just add to what DG sir said?
Sir, please.
In Chamoli disaster, when this happened, then in fact, it was at the initiative of the Agni mission that we had got some startups there with drones and robotics. So what happened that when they initially used the drones, they were not able to carry it forward and meet our requirement. So we said that, okay, here is a mountain and 10 kilometers away there is a glacial formation. We want that your drone should go there, set the GR, go there, take pictures, come back. So now the drone has to travel beyond line of sight and it has to be in a non-GPS environment. Those were their specific requirements. So at that particular time, they were not able to comply with the requirements. But later, of course, they innovated, they modulated, and I think now you would see that a few of them have done wonders. So another case was, going into the tunnel, a small nano drones, and maybe a mountain of slush is there. We want to see whether there are bodies there, live victims there. So these are the situations that we face, and I think if the startups are there, they are with us, they can be a great learning.
Thank you very much, Shahidi ji, and it is a mark, both, if I may refer kindly to the DG's comments and of course Shahidi Saab's comments and the consequence of that. It's a mark again of how genuinely visionary NDRF has been. Again, this is not just courtesy. If we are to try and drive organizational transformation and reconfiguration of capabilities, that involves learning cycles. And this particular example that the DG has suggested would be a great way of being able to integrate that into decision making. So this is constantly happening. We've had the great privilege of working with NDRF's officers, including Shahidi Saab, I remember, in Chamoli, to try and do that in a slightly more self-organized kind of way. It would be Agni's great pleasure, sir, to be able to support that. We'll create a catalogue of willing innovators who can respond quite quickly, and we can then integrate that. Thank you so much for your comments, sir. Much appreciated, and thank you, Shahidi ji, also for your input. In fact, it is exactly from there, I think I can draw a straight line from there to the question for Captain Nikunj. Nikunj, you'd mentioned, and if I may ask you the absolute mirror image of the question that was asked earlier. You've dealt, I mean, you're constantly looking at how to try and find better operational relevance to technologies when you use them. That tends to drive a lot of the development that we saw in the presentation. How do you think technology startups and innovators can help accomplish the vision that DG Sir has just outlined? How can you help drive use case development, but more importantly, capacity building at the operational level, at the tactical level, around the use of your technologies? How can that be matched? of all technologies, not just yours, obviously.
Absolutely. Rahul, a fantastic question, and this is what I also said. As DG sir said and Shahidi sir said is, be in the operational area. So if there is an operation heading out, how do you understand? You won't understand that in your lab. So you will have to volunteer and go across and at least understand what is going on there. Once you understand, then you come back with those learnings and try to adapt in the technology. Without those learning, it's very difficult to push across a system across to an organization like NDRF, which is on the fly or in the reactive mode, where they're planning for 85%, but 15% when it comes across, it's their 90% of efforts. So they are working on reactive situation. And no two building collapse is going to be same. Possibly you're learning from there, but no two building collapse would be the same. So as innovators and as startups and even bigger organizations, I personally believe we need to work hand in hand with them. Certain scenarios we'll have to invest ourselves into it and understand the ground realities and come back. So there has to be a lot of constant dialogues, a lot of case studies from the NDRF also for us, for the technocrats to understand and then put across the technology in the right perspective to their need and then go out for the field trials.
Great, thank you very much, Nikunjan. That takes me directly, in fact, very conveniently to Professor Suri. Professor, your lab, IIT develops some fantastic technologies. That happens, of course, across the R&D and academic network. How do you close the loop? Which Nikunj just opened, so one is obviously learning ground scenarios and going back from the field to innovation. How do you go forward from lab to users so that what you do is relevant, say, to a field commander like Commandant Dral? How do you close that particular loop?
Yeah, so with time or in recent past, the mechanisms to do that have been improving a lot. So, for instance, at least for IIT Delhi, there is a methodology in place to have incubations or startups come up to extract potential R&D that has the potential of commercialization and convert to products. So even in our case, we have built some AI-based technologies for analysis of geospatial data, which got incubated and which are now being used by field users, actual ground users, government users. But the very important aspect that I think we also touched upon was that unless you don't take it to the real user, unless it's not taken in an operational situation, that's when the solutions or the R&D has the next jump. Even in context of AI, everything works in the lab. But once you encounter real data, real field data, that's when there's a shift. So that's how we close the loop, through incubations and university-supported startups.
Got it. May I ask a follow-up question? That's an excellent idea. So you can go from technology, from the laboratory to startup. But you're dealing with slightly earlier stage, more advanced technology. That's the nature of R&D. How can we find ways, in your view, to be able to take that R&D into early enough decision-making at a force like NDRF or the SDRFs who are gathered here, so that this can be slowly incubated and evolved and converged in that particular direction?
That's a very relevant question. There was a point mentioned that NDRF lives in a lot of uncertainty. So that F in NDRF, if some of that F can become forecasting rather than just disaster response, then that uncertainty could perhaps come down. And for forecasting, you need really cutting edge technologies, concepts which are half tried, concepts which are not standardized. So that amounts to more risk appetite at the user side. So if the users can experiment more with half-baked technologies, that is the best way. And I'll just add on to that. We are looking at an era of indigenization, where we want good deep tech and indigenization, right? So we have to come off from the mindset that indigenized technologies will be perfect in the first go. They will be 70%, 80%, sometimes even a 50% technology.
Right.
So yeah.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Just a response to that. We have been working with the National Remote Sensing Center, and now we'll start with BISEC about predictive kind of AI that they should be able to tell me, guide me for a proactive deployment. That is likely to happen there. So rather than start the next morning, I can start this morning and be there in anticipation. It's a low-cost solution for me because I don't really lose much. I am there somewhere where nothing may happen, and I come back. So it's a familiarization, it's a place where I can go and learn something and come back. Next time I go, I'm already clued up. So I'm prepared to try that out. So all of these startups here, the tech companies, if you can give us any predictive technology, we'll be very happy to look at it. I'll mobilize at the possibility of something happening, and nothing happens, I come back. I'm fine with that. We can help you fine-tune that. I'm sure SDRF feel the same, that if you can tell us that this particular area is going to hit by this, in all probability or 10% probability, I don't mind sending a patrol out there, having a look at it, being there on watch, and coming back empty-handed, hopefully, thankfully. But this is something which we can all try out. Absolutely, completely up for it.
So that is really a great approach, because predictive requires more risk taking, right? In terms of resource deployment also, so yeah.
No, actually our resources are not audited. I think government functionaries here, nobody asked me, why did you send a team there? What did it cost? Okay. It's invisible cost. But the possibility of saving a life is so priceless that I am prepared to pay the invisible cost to be there. Hopefully nothing happens. If it does, I can maybe save more lives. So I'm good for that.
Sir, may I say something on this? I'm Commandant Home Guard, sir, Himachal Pradesh. Just want to say, whatever technology is being used, that is used only by the NDRF. And we are the first users who go on the ground whenever anything happens. If we can be incorporated into this, then we can tell them what the actual problems are and what, when we go for any operation or for saving and rescue, when go for rescue, then they can understand what we want, and what we want, that is, I think, foremost will be required by the NDRF also.
Thank you very much for your comment. Do you want to comment on that, sir? I can come in after you.
We would be very happy to be guided by you. Normally we are further away from you. So was that the question, that you would be there first and we can learn of the actual situational?
What I mean to say, like the technology which they are talking about, sir, because by the time NDRF is coming, by the time the initial homework has been done by us. So that information is provided by us to NDRF. So if they are with us directly, if they want...
Absolutely. They should be with you, with the community in a very direct manner, because even before you reach, the village would get hit first. So the village knows that this could be happening to me, a possible flooding or a possible cloudburst, they can move to higher ground. So these companies should have an interaction with the people on the spot, the community, you who is closest to them, and in a simultaneous manner. We don't want to be a bottleneck in the information at all.
NDRF is called when we say no. When we say yes, then I don't think that they get a call, NDRF gets a call. That has been for the past 4 years my experience. I said we will do it, and we have done it.
That's great. That is the objective of NDRF as well. Yes. That level 1 and level 2, the states and districts should be able to handle, so that I get called out very infrequently, and that gives me a lot of time to prepare, to give that edge, that when I do reach there, I have something much better than what was available locally.
Very right, very right. Yeah. We are with you.
Thank you. If I may quickly
just to highlight, can I say something, sir?
Please, sir.
So just to highlight what DG sir said, in many cases, I would cite, in fact, the borewell incidents where, in fact, NDRF has been away from the scene, but we have been in contact with the local authorities. And our men have been guiding them. Okay, you do this now you lower this oxygen, now the lights, this thing, so that, by the time the troops reach, some groundwork is done and the person is saved. So
borewell is one incident, sir.
Yes.
If you can see normal, certain other incidences also, like normal you can say somebody has drowned, landslide has taken place. If it's not a very major impact, then there is no point of calling NDRF. It is, we are over there and we are doing it.
I agree.
Like I saved last, in the monsoon, 28 lives have been saved by me. We did not call NDRF because that had taken a lot of time from them to come. And that golden hour was there. Had I not entered, then that golden hour would have gone.
That's the point I precisely want to convey, that, once we get in sync, we can share the information, and there is no requirement of coming there at all.
This is what I mean to say, sir, that if there can be collaboration between all of us and the technologies which companies are coming forward, if they can interact with us also, then it will be, I would say, that technology or the outcome which would come, that would be far what we are envisaging.
Thank you. In fact, just to respond to that as we close at 3:30, 2 quick comments. One is just to yours, and then if I may invite DG Saab again at the end. We'd be delighted to support that. I mean, the Principal Scientific Advisor's key mandate for us is follow through and partnership. The way in which Agni does it is we develop use cases in collaboration with the force, and NDRF has been among the central forces, I can say without any hesitation, far out among central agencies generally in terms of being able to develop these. We'd be very happy to sort of support you in any way, and we'll work through our counterparts in NDRF to identify how we can support that. At the end, if I may be permitted, sir, may I please invite your comments on a particular point? For you, sir, at the DG tier, at the leadership tier, you're interested in how an entire force can function and be more responsive, be faster, be more agile. What do you think technologists and innovators and operators can do in order to be able to help you create that force, starting with the premise of technology and ending with the end state of an agile organization?
I think that all my colleagues here who deal with disasters need all the help they can get, because we are going to have more difficulties, more challenges in future. Starting from my training, I would like to have all kinds of AI and simulation in my training so that my boys and girls get trained really well. Secondly, their continued updation, though it's part of training. Thirdly, for example, when I now go with devices, we are just buying some devices, we're thinking about preloading those devices with a dynamic online guide. So as my team moves, they should know what they're headed for, what is possible to happen, what action they should take or they should not take, what is the latest advice, maybe get in touch with the expert online in real time as they're approaching, so that when they reach there, they are not half informed, they're completely clued up. I would want a lot of situational awareness. I would like a lot of robotics, a lot of technology which can strengthen my hands, because we handle heavy machinery, we work for long hours. How can technology help in that? How can technology give me eyes and ears where I don't have a presence in the sky, inside tunnels, in confined spaces? I would like to have a lot of ideas about giving the medical response in the golden hour. How can I be more effective in saving a life and reaching that person to the hospital before we lose that? So technology, how can I involve the community, make it more resilient, make it more interactive, make it more aware that I recall there was a couple of years back, a train stuck in flood, somebody gave a call, he was geolocated and the boat was sent to. So can the community eventually count on people like us that their call is immediately geolocated and the help is sent right away through a drone or through a person or through jetpacks? So all of this is something that we are looking at very strongly, because NDRF is emerging as a force which the world now recognizes, because more disasters are hitting, that is one. Secondly, India is emerging as a power in the, not just in the region, but worldwide, where we are now aid providers. And that stature is something that all of us certainly aspire for the country. So we should be able to competently respond in those situations and not be found wanting. That if you call India, they will come with full force, with a lot of passion and heart, and a lot of all that they have. Regardless of diplomatic relations with Turkey, for example, we just pledge support without thinking twice about it. So that stature, how can I get for my country? And eventually it serves humanity. Forget about boundaries also. We are serving humans, or we are serving animals which are stuck in those disasters. So I think it's a great, great job to get involved in. You're directly involved in saving lives. So I don't think many of our police officers, we normally get involved in, either not getting killed or killing somebody else, preventing negative things from happening, but here is a chance of making positive things happen. So that's a great opportunity.
Sir, can I please ask you a question, sir? DG, sir? So as a representative of Haryana Police and Home Guards as of now, I'm DSP Tanya Singh from Haryana. So I would like to ask you what is the status of our coordination, as in coordination of NDRF, SDRF, and police personnel of a state? What are the basics, or what is the SOP, and where do we stand right now, practically? Because the first line of responders is local police. Then we call an SDRF, and then NDRF comes into play. NDRF is a far-fetched player for a local district level or a Gram Panchayat level disaster. So, sir, how are we prepared to deal with that, or to coordinate at such times in a short interval of time?
Please stop me if I'm going on the wrong track. First is that we are requesting, and many states have already added disaster management response to the basic training of police officers of all ranks. So the constable, sub-inspector, deputy SP should know that even if they don't know, looking at them in a uniform, people would expect help. They see a person in uniform, they'll expect help. You can't say कि मुझे नहीं आता है. So basic training should include this, number one. Number two, the SDRFs in many states are really well equipped, equal to us. Odisha is one example. Other states are doing it. Many states are not serious about it. There are 2-3 major things. One is they don't have a dedicated manpower. SDRFs are there, sometimes notified, not notified in lesser numbers. And they are pulled into other duties across the months. Suddenly at the time of monsoon, they'll be collected back. That doesn't serve the purpose. You need dedicated manpower. You need manpower of a certain age group and fitness level, maybe for a longer period of time, 7 years like we have, because you will take 2-3 years to prepare. By that time, tenure is over, goes back to the police station, you lose out on that. So SDRFs need to have a clarity that they should be able to handle things which affect your state, your vulnerability profile. So what we did was, we created vision documents at NDRF for each of the states. We will give you the Haryana document. What is Haryana prone to? How has NDRF been involved the last 8-10 years? Where do you get hit by what? What training do you need? What equipping do you need? I would be able to help out in all that. My major objective is to strengthen you. I'll repeat that. My major objective is to strengthen your hands because you are closer to the place of incident than I am. So any help you need, we are there for you.
Sir, as a field level officer, so I would like to know, how do I coordinate with you? Because there is so much red tapeism and paraphernalia at the time of disaster that approaching the right officer is the biggest issue at that time. When we are in the midst of a disaster, getting connected to the right officer is what we all need to know beforehand, that this is the person in charge that we should look forward to at that time of disaster from the state authority or from the national authority. This is what is lacking in the training part. So I think, sir, rather than leaving it for the states to do their bit in this, NDRF should play a proactive role in making their presence felt at the village level, also in the state. In the entire country, length and breadth. Everyone should have an awareness about NDRF, not just the people who are attending a conference or some people who have undergone some training. So what should be the, if I could suggest you, sir, a proactive role needs to be played by your force so that we can benefit at field level and it is not caught in the files of the senior officials.
We'll have a one-to-one after this, but if I have understood, NDRF could have somebody was saying a call center that people can call us directly. That negates the purpose because however big I might become, I'm 16 battalions strong now, I still won't be as close to them as the police station, as some of you. Therefore, to expect NDRF to respond to calls directly across the country, it will not bear the results.
Maybe, sir, with some higher police officials, maybe there can be a call center for police officials because they are the first line of responders.
It is always there. We have the control room and we don't stand on ceremonies. I get mobilized on a call. My protocol requires the DC to kind of summon us or to request us. We don't stand on those. As of now, the protocol is we get a call, we see a news on the TV and we mobilize. The control room has asked, sab unhone mangi nahi hai. The instruction is let the team go. Let them learn and come back, even if they don't get involved or used or whatever else. So the mobilization is very quick. So I'm still not understanding what exactly you need. But my understanding is that you would have to prepare yourself to some extent. We are available on a call, and a call from you to the headquarters to the control room available on the website would trigger our response.
Sir, may I add? Actually, if NDRF is to be called, SDMAs are aware of it, Relief Commissioner, they know it. Even District Magistrate, SPs, most of them don't know it. So we get calls from them directly, and sometimes, as G sir said, we go on their own, seeing the gravity of the situation. So that channel is there. Maybe you will have to check in your state, and we can discuss later also.
Thank you very much to all of our panelists. Where does all this discussion go? Where is all this going to finally ground itself? We've had the great pleasure of working with NDRF now for some time, and there are particular concepts on which we'd now like to focus our attention in a very practical fashion. The concept of the smart rescuer, which NDRF has driven. You know, what does a man or a woman on the field look like a year from now, 2 years from now. The concept of a more fast responding force that can anticipate uncertainty and that can then respond to it with a clear technology stack built into an operational protocol, built into a training, into a training procedure. So everything that we've gathered today, both the Q&A that we've had, all of that is going to feed into a set of action items and an agenda for partnership that we're looking forward very much to driving with our very, very valued counterparts here at NDRF. Again, I'd like to kindly thank the Director General for his hospitality and for hosting us, the Inspector General and the DIG, and the assembled officers of NDRF, and most of all our panelists and the audience who's gathered here today. Thank you very much. We hope you found this helpful and insightful. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the moderator and the panelists for the third session. It was, in fact, more of a brainstorming session where we discussed use of technology for proactive mitigation of disasters and more collaboration among different agencies. I now request DG NDRF to present memento to moderator and the panelists. Sir, please. D, sir, please. First to receive as moderator Shri Rahul Nair. Dr. P.K. Srivastav. Dr. Anirudh Roy. Sri Sudesh Kumar Dral, Commandant, NDRF. Captain Nikunj Parashar. Professor Manan Suri. Thank you, sir. With this, we have come to an end of all the sessions, and now we will be continuing with the valedictory function after the tea break. You all are requested to be here at 1605 hours because the chief guest would be arriving by that time. Thank you. 1605.
The NDRF officers, may I have your attention please? The NDRF officers are requested to be downstairs for the photo session, please. Only the NDRF officers who are participants here, you are requested to be downstairs at the escalator for photo session with the chief guest. Rest may remain seated here and can come back after tea. Thank you.
मुझे उसमें चेंज कर दिया था सर चेंज कर दिया था इसलिए मैंने बोला ना रिक्वेस्ट पार्टिसिपेंट्स टू फॉर फोटो सेशन सर ने बीच में बोला कि नहीं
पार्टिसिपेंट का था ही नहीं सर वो पार्टिसिपेंट का था यार
मैंने इसे बोला कि नहीं वैसे लेकिन वो बोला कि सर
हाँ क्यों नहीं कर सकते
Evening to all of you. As this evening unfolds slowly and steadily, we have finally arrived at the final phase of today's event. I am honored to announce the arrival of our chief guest of the day, Shri S.N. Pradhan, IPS, DG NCB. He has been kind enough to grace today's event. I take pride in this moment to have Sir's presence here as not only esteemed chief guest for the day, but also as former DG of NDRF. Sir, NDRF has scaled new heights under your able command. May I now request Shri Atul Kalwar, DG NDRF, to introduce our respected chief guest for the day to the gathering. Sir, please.
I deem it a privilege, and I'm proud to introduce Mr. S.N. Pradhan, who is also my batchmate, and as just announced, my predecessor in NDRF, to all of you today. Many of you would have met him, heard about him, known him. He is from the 1988 batch of Indian Police Service and has 34 long years of experience in internal security, law and order, training of IPS officers. He spent 6 years in the National Police Academy, training the young crop of IPS officers in disaster management, and now he's posted as the Director General of the Narcotics Control Bureau. He is a postgraduate in political science, an MPhil in international relations from JNU, a Chevening scholar with a postgraduate law degree in international human rights. And he was decorated with the Queen's Award for Innovation in Policing by the government of UK. He has been awarded the Meritorious Services Medal, the Distinguished Service Medal, Disaster Response Medal, and the Ati Utskrish Seva Padak. But what many of you may not know is that he is one of the brightest, most innovative, and tech-savvy officers I have known. Though he's an arts graduate, technology is his passion, and he has, during his tenure as DG NDRF, brought the NDRF's work so much into limelight that the force has a place in the citizens' hearts now as the angels in orange. Not to say NDRF was not working well earlier, but he improved it so much and really showcased the work of this wonderful, unique force to the people at large, including, if you recall, the Kaun Banega Crorepati show, which was conducted by Amitabh Bachchan. Mr. Pradhan was on the hot seat, and the 125 lakhs till they blew the bugle and stopped him from winning more because he just wouldn't go wrong. So 25 lakhs were won by him for the force in the Kaun Banega Crorepati show also. He's a great leader, and I must say that I succeeded him, and I'm finding it difficult to fill his shoes. Also because he wears a size 10 and I wear a size 8. So that's one more reason why it's difficult for me to fill his boots. But it's great to have you here, and we thought that we'll ask him to come here because he has a very recent connect with this force. He spent 3+ years as the DG, and from his perspective, as things have evolved, and as he's a voracious reader, keeps up very well with the current events, he would bring a lot of clarity about what NDRF and what disaster response in the country should look forward to. So thank you so much for being here. Satya, as I call him, and over to you. Thank you.
He has to give a summary.
Yes, my mistake. I'll request IG NDRF to give a brief.
Before that, sir, I would request you to please present the sapling to...
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Now the time has come to recapitulate today's deliberations and have a solid take-home message. I now request IG sir to present summary of the workshop and way forward. Thank you. Welcome.
Respected Chief Guest Shri S.N. Pradhan, DG NCB, and Shri Atul Karwal, DG NDRF. Sir, just to highlight today's session, we had a very fruitful discussion today, and we had total 3 sessions today attended by distinguished moderators and panelists. In the first session in the morning, sir, the DRDO representative was here, and he spoke about the various products which DRDO has made in India, and they talked about products related to detection, protection, decontamination and training. And they also discussed and showcased some of the products related to advanced protective ensemble, decontamination and detection equipment like CBRN Recce drone and IR-based detection with LiDAR system. In the same session, sir, there was a ex-director from DMI Bhopal, and he spoke on industrial chemical emergencies. And the lecture was quite insightful as he talked about various methods of preventing chemical disaster and risk reduction strategies. He also talked about the spectrum of chemical hazard in the country, which gave us some insight about the dimension of vulnerability of hazards related to chemical emergencies in India, and regulatory provisions related to handling chemicals, like especially the toxic chemicals in the country. He also spoke about disasters in the industrial and economic activities and different sources of chemical hazards. And more so, he talked about creating a database of all hazard chemicals, which NDRF is already doing. And he also highlighted the importance of transportation network, including ports, railways, and road transports. How these chemicals can make these transportation vulnerable, and we should be aware of it. The third panelist in the first session, he talked about pandemics and biological emergencies. And outcome of that panelist was that he spoke about certain way forwards like remote automation, AI-assisted technology, cloud technology, and bio-sniffing platforms, and remote robotics, etc. Continuing after the first session, in the second session, sir, we spoke about importance of data technology on disaster response. And there was a panelist from NRSC, and he spoke about the role being played by NRSC in disaster management, especially regarding their vision to provide space-based information during all phases of natural disasters, that is preparedness, response, mitigation, and reconstruction phases. So we have a close connection with NRSC, as you know, and we have been working closely with them, and they are providing a lot of help to us. And the panelists spoke about the capability of forecasting of flood through pan-India runoff details in millimeter, work on landslide hazard prediction in North and Northeast India, damage assessment in case of earthquake disaster, predicting forest fire for rapid response support was also discussed, which is a new mandate for NDRF. So this is going to be a very useful technology for us in future. He also discussed about web-based data for all the disasters over NDEM portal, which you are aware of it, sir. It has improved. In fact, more manpower have been trained in NDRF, and we are using it successfully. And I would like to highlight that the importance of these technologies lie in its use by all the agencies, and I would encourage the participants coming from various states and agencies to closely go through it, and then a lot of features are free, and it can be used for really effective management and planning for handling disaster. In second session, sir, in the panelist, there was another panelist from BISEC. We have been working closely with them how we can use their data expertise to improve functioning of NDRF. And he spoke about geoinformatics and geospatial technology, and deliberated on different modes of awareness and capacity building, use of geospatial technology for better decision making, informed of the database available with BISEC, which gave us some perspectives and all the participants that these are the capabilities of BISEC, which we can coordinate with them and use it for better handling of field related to disaster. And I would also like to say that BISAC has immense amount of data which can be utilized very efficiently for states. Those who are still working on it, they can coordinate with BISAC because they have a lot of data pan-India basis, and it can be really very helpful. Continuing to the third panelist in the second session, there was a panelist from Karnataka, Dr. Manoj Ranjan, and he gave a perspective from the state side, what states have been doing. So it was a very good example of what Karnataka government has been doing, using the technology in handling the disasters. He spoke about disaster risk reduction initiatives in Karnataka and spoke of government initiatives in disaster risk management. He highlighted the GIS-based platforms with GIS-enabled real-time weather dashboard. And there were many features he highlighted in his presentation, and some of them are technology to provide heat wave, dot assessment and lightning events to minimize the losses, use of artificial intelligence and machine learning for Varuna Mitra Facilitation Center for rainfall and other weather-related information to the farmers. He also gave insight regarding disaster early warning system used in Karnataka, centralized wireless public warning system, and use of geospatial technology in disaster management within the state. So these are some of the examples where other states, those who are going to implement and thinking about it, can learn to way forward while formulating their policy. In the third session, we had invited a lot of experts working in different fields in the technology, and there was discussion about indigenous technologies, avalanche warning system, GIS and geospatial technology, importance of e-learning for capacity building, drones and robotics, and artificial intelligence in disaster management. So it was a very interactive discussion with all the stakeholders in the third session. And finally, to sum up, sir, this platform is a precursor to the final NPDRR, which is going to held on 10th and 11th of March 2023. And we focused on the technology sector, which can be used by disaster handling agencies. And there are platform, and this session today, all these three sessions and time which we got provided platform to network and appreciate the technologies available across various sectors which can be used to manage disasters. So that was one of the most important target for us, and it gave us food for thought for all of us, what other agencies are doing, what are their capabilities, how can we harness those capabilities for our benefit. And from user side, posing questions and requirement to the technology provider, because unless we question our capability and question the private sector or the technology provider, then there will not be any real synchronization between these two. So it also provided that opportunity to think and question how we can be benefited. And this also provided an opportunity for matching of ground reality within the suitable technologies. Technologies are many, but many technology may not work. So we have to identify technologies which are suitable for us, which can be really adopted for handling disaster. DG and DRF sir talked about the requirement of predictive technology and gave his insight, and he handled various queries raised by the participants related to NDRF also. Technologies to be used by the state, then state should give the feedback. That was a very important thing. Some of the participants had raised and NDRF may be using the technology and telling us. So that was not the objective. The objective is the interaction is across parallel. It's not through NDRF only. Every state will have its own requirement. They can directly interact with the partners, technology providers, and see what is best for them. This technology is just to give an idea what type of technologies are available, what is NDRF using, what is central government is using, and so state has to take the best decision which can be useful considering the local context of the state government. And finally, to conclude, prevention and mitigation will continue to be the strongest pillar than merely going for response. So that will remain. So how to use technology to prevent such disaster. So that should be the main target, and response should be a very small part of overall effort by the government. That's how we will be able to handle it more efficiently. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Honorable Chief Guest to address the August gathering, sir? Answer, please.
Thank you, Atul and all the friends present today. Special thanks to Atul, my good friend and batchmate, for the profuse words of generous praise. And I can point out one thing, that although our feet size don't match, our heads match. Although he has covered his head now. And one part I cannot show you is that our hearts also match. So head and heart are in the right place. So NDRF is in the safest and the best hands possible. And it can only get better as time goes by with Atul at the helm. Today we are gathered in the shadow of a disaster that has happened not very far from here, geographically speaking, in which, very interestingly, NDRF has also been part of, as a part of the response mechanism. Today we are talking about response in the framework of disaster resilience or disaster risk reduction, because we are talking about NPDRR, which Bundela mentioned just now. NPDRR is the National Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. The last meeting, national meeting, was held in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the framework which is now prevalent, which is called the Sendai framework. You must have heard of the Sendai framework. Sendai framework being focused on looking at disaster management as preparation, mitigation, prevention, not just managing disaster as a response mechanism or responding to disasters after they happen. If I can use a very simple phrase, this is about making disasters less disastrous, so that the damage potential is minimized. Disasters will happen, but can we minimize the damage potential? Like a disease will happen, with old age disease will, but can we minimize the damage potential to the body? So disasters will happen. Can we minimize the damage potential? And disasters will happen because the climate is changing, it is going out of sync. There is pollution, there is disruption of normal nature, due to various reasons. So disasters will happen. Can we minimize the damage? And in that context, we are talking about response. Can we prepare ourselves better? Can we be prepared for a better response? And to be prepared, can we leverage technology? So this is the bottom line today. To be best prepared, to be able to prevent when the disaster has not happened, and to be able to mitigate faster when it has happened, and build back better. The triple B, build back better. That is the Sendai spirit. And the Sendai spirit also is how to minimize the rate of death. How many people die per lakh? If it has happened to be X number, it should be X minus some number. How many people will be affected? If it has been X number, it should be X minus. It should be less, not more. 7 promises or principles of the Sendai framework are saying that substantially reduced life loss, substantially reduced economic loss, substantially reduced impact. So lives and livelihood, both the impact should be reduced. This is the promise of Sendai framework, and this is up to 2030. How does it impact a force like NDRF, for example, which is a responding force? And how will it leverage technology? So I'll just have a small PPT presentation in front of you, and a combination of few video clips to exemplify, because I want to keep it not technology intensive talk. We will talk about technology. I'll just mention them in passing because there are a lot of technologies. But what I'm trying to hint at is there a technology response architecture for disaster resilience where we make disasters less disastrous because of our technological prowess? Is that possible? Or is that something we are thinking about? The promise of disruptive technology is there, but it will stay a promise unless we actually disrupt. And I'll show a disruptive image just now. The next slide, please. Now imagine this is NDRF personnel wearing a jet suit. In 2030, for example, since 2030 is our target range. Now you will say, sir, this is from science fiction. This is a real photograph from Scotland, where it's a medic who's wearing the rescuer suit. He's connected with a base station so that if something goes wrong, he can be guided back to land. And he is ostensibly or apparently going to deliver life-saving medicines to the upper reaches of Scotland mountains. Now, we all know that there are at least 3 battalions of NDRF who are going to be in the upper reaches of mountains, and they have to do mountain rescue. All the preparations are going on. Atul is at it, and his team is at it. So not only are they learning mountain rescue, maybe in 2030 this will be very, very pedestrian, normal technology to have a jet suit. And what will be the back end of that jet-suited person, rescuer, who is going to probably rescue or at least help or reach life-saving medicines to a mountaineer who is stuck on the slopes in a remote corner of some mountain. Or it may be snowing already. He may be actually lying in snow with his legs broken. So medicines are reached by this person who is an NDRF personnel. Will the expectations be of such kind? Absolutely yes. When I was in NDRF, we had an incident in Nanda Devi on the slopes, and the American embassy, the American government actually put in a request, send the NDRF team so that the 2 mountaineers could be rescued. So this is the response mechanism, and this can be only possible on the strength of appropriate technology. I call it prepared and connected resilience because you can show that resilience and preparedness if you are also connected. Because the world today is predicated on connectedness. So any preparation of technology you are thinking of, whether in your daily life or whether in disaster response, first question to be asked to yourself is it connected? Is it connected? We are all today in the digital age, but have we considered this postulate that all of us who are handling disaster response or emergency response or civil defense, we are digital humanitarians. Digital humanitarians, not humanitarians per se, digital humanitarians. Not because we are in the digital age, but because we are digitally connected with each other. Not only is the rescuers connected, the rescuer and the rescued are connected, and the to be rescued is actually co-creating disaster response. Please mark my words. To be rescued, the community which is under impact of a disaster is actually co-creating your response by helping you to reach it. What has happened in Turkey? I'll give you examples of Turkey, very common examples of Turkey, very recent examples, where people who are under the rubble were sending tweets and WhatsApp messages citing their locations. And that helped in rescue of some of them. Others, the Israelis set up a VPN network. Even the NDRF has a VPN network. The only thing the Israelis had, it was called Carbine with a Y, C-A-R-B-Y-N-E. Some of you who would be interested may look it up, Carbine, which is the same VPN network that NDRF has, except that it has a base station and a software backup and a control room backup where everything was logged. So that came as a boon and has been a game changer to a great extent in the rescue efforts. So we are all digital humanitarians, otherwise we are falling short of our mojo. We are not really up to it in this digital age. So there is one story which I am very, very fascinated by. In 2014, a person named Ahmad Wani, an engineer from Silicon Valley, was in Jammu when the floods happened in Jammu. He was to get married. He had come to look up and settle the alliance with the bride-to-be. It so happened that the flood struck at that time, and he was stranded in the second floor of his house, which, including his in-laws, were marooned till the first floor. If there had not been a second floor, he says, probably some of them would have died or he would have died. Ahmad Wani goes back after several weeks, after finalizing his marriage with his bride-to-be, goes back to Silicon Valley, vows to himself that I will use my technology knowledge in AI, artificial intelligence, to set up a program and a business which helps city governments, state governments, national governments to leverage AI to predict damage in all sorts of disasters. His firm is called One Concern. He had only one concern that day when he was leaving Jammu, and he lived up to that concern. He wanted to do something about that one concern. I'll show you a video clip of that to give you a sense of how technology can be leveraged. There's another small clip which is about digital humanitarianism. It is the International Red Cross's movie. Please see it and remember the phrases that are used.
People affected by disasters and conflict are connected like never before. They're not just passive recipients of aid, but indeed can contribute valuable information and indeed even be considered as creators of content and mobilizing communities to advocate in their own interests. With the proliferation of mobile devices, we can imagine a world where the big data that will come from this hyperconnectivity will provide us with insights and information that will improve the effectiveness of how aid operations are run.
One of the main challenges that we're seeing at the ICRC is that there is an increasingly large amount of data that is coming not only from the people directly affected by the conflict or disaster, but also other people, including journalists and governments. This can be quite overwhelming, not only for us at the ICRC, but also for the movement, the Red Cross Red Crescent movement. And we've seen that, for instance, even in 2012 with Hurricane Sandy, there were over 3 million tweets with the hashtag Sandy within the span of just 24 hours. So this is huge. And we also see that there are other issues coming beyond that, which includes verifying the data and also the credibility of those people providing the data. So for instance, if someone reports that there are people needing help in a specific neighborhood, we have to cross-check that information, see if other people have talked about it, and we also have to find out who is behind that information and where they get their sources from.
People may have many different expectations with the data they give us. Some may want us to publicly denounce, some may just be informing us, and some others request orientation and assistance. All of them will demand also protection and security. The problem is that in many cases they have very limited awareness regarding digital security and also limited choice regarding the tools and networks they use to communicate with us. So we need to ensure that they don't expose themselves or other people unwittingly to specific threats. For instance, in Syria, we had people reporting on our Facebook page the names or pictures of people who had been arrested. This is very useful information, but it's not the right way to transmit it to us for follow-up.
The digital revolution, we see more and more people expressing their needs on online platforms. We have to listen to that. We have to listen to criticism as well. And we have to react not only virtually, but in real life as well. But these platforms offer new opportunities as well. We can connect these people with people who can help them. We can provide them with help on online platform. And it's an amazing opportunity for us to connect people in need with people who are ready to help, even if they are remote, very remote from them, kilometers away.
Can we have the presentation, please? So it was about being effective humanitarians, and that means to be a digital humanitarian in the digital age. In today's time, we are in the industry 4.0, the fourth industrial revolution, the first being mechanization, the second being mass production, the third being automation and computerization, and today we are in the use of in the phase of smart technology, where the network is the computer. Earlier the computer joined to form the network. Today the network is the computer, where everything is crunched together. Thousands and millions of computers across the geography of the world. The data in those computers can be crunched in a matter of a second by artificial intelligence and big data analytics. So the network is the computer. So you are connected whether you like it or not. And it is like this. I'm a little spiritual about this in a very funny way, but I'm spiritual because what does what does the spiritual texts teach us? That we are all connected. We are all connected. And today, science is headed in that direction. The networking that is happening, is connecting across the world. And in a way, the manifestation of each country helping the other in the disaster is a manifestation of the bond of humanity, that we are together in this, or we are sinking together, or we live together. So when I talk about an architecture of disaster resilience, I talk about not only that this technology is only in the future, we are actually using the technology to a great extent. For example, in Cyclone Phony, many of you don't know, that was the first disaster that I handled, and many of you don't know, even I didn't know, that for the first time, a massive deployment of Doppler radars happened. And massive data crunching happened in the computers of the IMD. Terabytes and terabytes of data were crunched. To do what? To arrive at the exact path and the exact time and exact impact. And this is the bottom line: exact impact, impact-based prediction. How much will be the wind speed is not the issue. The issue is how much will it damage. Will it damage pakka houses? Will it damage kacha houses? What will happen in the path of, in the wake of the storm? That was worked out through data crunching, through analytics, machine learning in the IMD, including the sensors that were deployed in the sea on the buoys, which are out in the sea. Everything combined, even the sensors on the naval ships that were sent out to cover the cyclone preparedness, everything was combined. So it is not as if we are not using technology. We are not probably clued into it. We are using technology, but what I'm talking about is whether we are scaling it enough. It's also happening. I showed you the example of one concern. There is this Cloud 2 Street, which is now called Flood Base, which is a private enterprise recognized by the UN, which gives real-time data about floods, and as the floods unfold, the impact. Digitally, you can see it on the map live. Field Ready is already in Turkey. You will be surprised what it does. Field Ready is a farm which uses technology, 3D technology, to make small items out of waste. For example, they made solar power systems out of waste that came out of the damaged aspects of the houses and the paraphernalia across the cities and towns. That is what they are doing now in Turkey. They are now setting up with the use of 3D printing. How many of you know that some of the field-ready inputs were used in the time of COVID to 3D print face shields in India? I'm sure many of you have not been aware of such a development. The face shields, some of them were actually made out by youngsters from 3D printers. And as we speak, there are farms now mushrooming across India with young IITians and young engineers preparing for 3D printing of houses. Just imagine if 3D printing houses can be done in a fraction of the time that it is taken to build a normal house. How rehabilitation can be speeded up on the basis of 3D printing. So while I'm talking about digital technology and scaling it up, a lot of things are happening which are indicators that we can go in that direction with a lot more resolve, but a lot more preparation. The NDRF has also leveraged technology. It is doing it almost on a daily basis, as Bundela was explaining, and I'm sure Atul is driving the whole process ahead. In Karnataka floods, this was in 2020. This is a young engineer boy from Suratkal Engineering College. He found out that the NDRF was, in what happened? NDRF in I think Hubli area or one of those districts, I forget. They were not able to rescue some people who the villagers thought were hiding in the trees or hanging on to the dear life on the trees. This boy from Suratkal Engineering College said, I have made a drone, I can help you. So he was sitting in the boat and he helped them locate a lot of stranded people, including an old couple who were both suffering from terminal cancer with a pet dog of their own. They were hanging on to dear life on the trees. But for this Suratkal boy and his drone technology, they would not have been able to rescue them. Yeah. It's okay, I'll carry on. I mean, the point that has to be made, I think has been made, that while we are using technology, what is the gap to be covered is the gap of scaling up and implementation. Real investment for resilience. Real investment for resilience. We don't need a few drones, we need a few thousand drones. Each battalion is not to be given a quota of 3 drones. Each battalion is to be given a quota of 100 drones, probably small and big, small size factor. That is a kind of investment and a leap of faith that is required. It's a leap of technological faith that is required. Next slide, please. Why the leap of faith is required? Just look at the scale with which the disasters are hitting us and whether the scale of preparedness matches the scale of disasters that are hitting us. In the last decade, on an average, in fact, this is over the last 100 years, but let me consider it the last decade for purposes of other figures. There has been 1 degree of change in the temperature of the earth. Roughly 1 degree. Actually, it has been over the 100 years, but let's confine it to 1 decade. There have been 364 disasters. There has been 68,000 deaths, more than 200 million affected, more than $150 in damages, $1 billion in damages. Asia Pacific has been the worst affected, and India has been the 4th most affected. This is a slide I've got from NDRF. I used to use this regularly, and I'm sure it is still being used. You name a vulnerability of disaster, and it is very much existent in India. So what is the context I'm looking at? I'm looking at when a digitally connected world is in front of you, you need digitally connected governance. When I did my human rights course in the UK, I was a little taken aback when I was told by the lecturer in the first place, what are the human rights? And human rights are claimed by against whom? A human being. Whom does he claim his human right from? Any responses? My human rights I can claim from whom? Yeah? Fellow humans. And legally I can claim from? Constitution. You have your rights against the state. The rights are against the state. Legally, it is against the state. The state is duty bound to ensure your rights. In a digitally connected government, you want to be also connected. And you want to be told, you want to be informed that not only these are my rights, I must be informed that I am to be rescued and I am going to be rescued. There is no such thing as a right to rescue. But you add all the rights and it adds up to right to rescue. Right against disasters. Right against being impacted by a disaster. That is a human right, although it is not spelled out anywhere. And today it is a right which says that I should be informed, I should be connected, I should be reached. Right against disaster, right to be rescued, right to be mitigated, compensated, but also reached. I should be told almost real time that I am reaching you, I am going to rescue you, this is the money you are going to get, this is the money you are going to reach in your bank account, etc., etc. So my pet dream is, as a former DG of NDRF and very interested in the disaster response of this country, which I think is part of and mainstream of governance response, the speed and scale in disaster governance. We have a scheme called Gati Shakti, PM's Gati Shakti program. You may have heard about it. Gati Shakti is scale and speed in governance. I would very much like it to also translate into speed and scale in Gati Shakti in disaster governance. The scaling, as I said, not 5 drones, but 500 drones probably. The leap of faith of investment in disaster, because when you govern disasters well, that is probably a litmus test of your governance itself, per se. So when you look at disaster risk reduction and building back better, you are also looking at involving the community, and as you saw on the Digital Humanitarian ICRC video, the word co-creation was mentioned, co-creation of disaster resilience. That I become resilient is also my ownership, but I need your help. So the government must help me. I have a right to expect help from government to become resilient. That is the formulation of an ordinary citizen. I want to be resilient as a community, but I need the help and I have a right to expect the help from the facilitation from the government, so that government and the community co-creates my resilience. And in this, technology, digital, cyber connectivity can be a disruptive game changer. I'll give you some technologies, but I don't want to expand on them. Suffice it to say that the first 3 technologies, satellite, social media, crowdsourcing, they are the highest data generating sources in disaster response technologies. Satellite continues to be the most important data generating technology, followed closely by social media, followed by crowdsourcing. Now, these are all examples that are relevant to Turkey as it is happening because it's the most recent and it is very, very current. The NASA has almost declared that it will be the eye in the sky for the Turkish government for all its rescue efforts and rehabilitation efforts, as long as the Turkish government wants. Eye in the sky. So imagine you are in this room and this room is devastated, but there is a eye in the sky which gives a picture of the entire room to a planner or to a responder. He knows exactly what is happening, real time. NASA is offering the small aperture satellites for becoming the eye in the sky. Cloud 2 Street is offering, a flood base is offering the real-time mapping. Meta, which owns Facebook and now WhatsApp also, is offering the safety check. Thousands and thousands of people are ruling themselves out as safe or not safe. Google is offering the crisis app, and MicroTasker, Reporter, Social Computer, these are all crowdsourcing apps where crowdsourcing is helping people to be located, to locate their near and dear ones, to actually reach out to rescuers and to reach out to governance machinery. UAV and drones are being used not to the extent that probably is expected in a disaster of such scale, but they are getting their act together slowly but surely. And let us not forget that drones can also operate in water. Simulation and flood maps are one important areas, not related to Turkey, but simulation is important, and simulation can be a game changer in terms of floods, handling floods. Spatial technology, geospatial technology, TN Smart is an app which the Tamil Nadu government uses. It's a very, very impactful geospatial technology which feeds into disaster response. LiDAR, we all know, LiDAR is being used by Turkey. Light detection and ranging. This is to do measurements in remote areas where you cannot really navigate the area because of rubble, because of destruction. So you want to know the distance between a certain damaged building and the base station of the rescue teams. You can just send the LiDAR beam and it will give you the data about the distance, etc. And in Turkey, mobile, GPS and CDR analysis has become the mainstay of the rescue operations now of the government forces. So all these technologies are being used, except there is only one problem. Neither there is enough scale, neither there is enough speed. Internet of Things, sensor webs. You know, we all know that in South India, especially in Tamil Nadu, I think in Andhra Pradesh, the ex-chief minister, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, used to have a governance dashboard, which now the present chief minister is also using. And the governance dashboard is to the extent that even the street lamps which have gone dysfunctional are also reported in the governance dashboard so that there is real-time repair. In Rio de Janeiro, during the Olympics, there was an Internet of Things where web was spread out across Rio de Janeiro for the Olympics. And today, it has become the mainstay of city governance and also disaster governance in Rio. And in this very room, when I was in NDRF, there was a meeting with the Japanese delegates, which was chaired by the Union Home Minister, present Union Home Minister. And the Japanese delegate, who was the chief of the disaster response agency of Japan, and whose qualifications are very interesting. He was a professor of psychology. He has given a statement that is astounding. He says that due to the sensors and IoT web that they have put in the continental shelf of near the seas of Japan, because the earthquake, actually the rumble starts from the seabed, they have got an advantage of 30 to 35, upwards up to 55 seconds of predictability of the earthquake. Now 55 seconds or even 35 seconds can be a magical interval in an earthquake situation. Because please remember, from the 4-year-old to the 40-year-old to the 80-year-old, the Japanese are drilled in earthquake drills, earthquake response. So even if you get 40 seconds, an entire apartment complex could be emptied, vacated within those 40 seconds. This is on the basis of the IoT, which are, the sensors are in the seabed. The other astounding claim he made is probably, only time will tell. He says the next big tsunami, by our data crunching calculations on the basis of the sensor webs and the IoT, the next big tsunami, which is going to be really cataclysmic, potentially, is going to hit Japan in 2030. Now, I was quite shocked by his revelation, but he was very sanguine about it. Very, very calm and very, very matter of fact about it. That is the power of technology. Even if it is proved to be incorrect, it proves that you can prepare yourself with an application of mind and data. The data becomes your mind, extension of your mind. And all these all these things, the ones that I showed in the previous slide, satellite, social media, crowdsourcing, UAV, etc., and IoT sensor webs, everything generates data and it comes into big data. All sorts of data are generated, converge into one place, and no human mind can crunch and make sense out of it, but machines can. Machines can and machine do. In a split second, they will give you patterns and visualize patterns of what could happen. And in the Nepal earthquake situation, AI was used by the IBM Watson platform to give data out of images, to make sense out of images, because they could get only pictures from drones. But how to make sense of pictures from drones unless you know the place or unless you are a local? But IBM Watson could interpret data and give the details of how much damage has happened and how many lives have been lost. 3D printing I've already told you about. Now blockchain. You may be surprised that the biggest donation to Turkish affected people is coming through blockchain. Of course, we know that the cryptocurrency route is a little controversial, but blockchain is the technology behind cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrency is a subset of blockchain. Now suffice it to say that blockchain has proved to be a blessing, not necessarily in disguise, to the Turkish affected people. And finally, in a very small scale, an Israeli firm and a Japanese firm are using robotics for rescue. Why I gave these technologies is because they are actually being used as we speak in a situation which is unfolding, still unfolding. Next. So the issue is, what is the issue that remains? If we are using such technologies and we are familiar enough with such technologies, what is the issue? The issue is this: decision makers need to manage risks of disasters, not just disasters. You have to manage the risk, and this is the spirit of the Sendai framework under which we are all gathered here. Disaster risk reduction is the framework under which we are gathered here. So there has to be humanitarian investment, and appropriate technology should be scaled up with that investment for prevention and mitigation. Just to share a figure, only 4% of the estimated 10 billion in annual humanitarian assistance is devoted to prevention. Yet every dollar spent on risk reduction saves between $5 and $10 in economic losses from disasters. That is the equation. Spend early or pay dearly. This is the message that a disaster gives. Spend early or pay dearly later on. And this is exemplified by this dollar equation, where every dollar spent on risk reduction, so every dollar spent on drones for survey, for analysis, every dollar spent on AI, every dollar spent on robotics, every dollar spent on data crunching, every dollar spent on satellite technology, every dollar spent on machine learning can be a game changer, can make a great difference to the lives of people, and we are talking about lives of people. And let's not forget that the PM in his 10-point agenda also hinted at this, leveraging of technology to enhance efficiency of the DRR and utilize opportunities provided by social media and mobile technologies. What I would certainly like to be added as an 11th point, not only by the PM's, at the PM's agenda level, but also by the Sendai framework, is the upscaling of technology and focusing on technologies of the future, present and the future. I think that should be spelled out without mincing words, without hedging, very clearly, because technology can really be an efficiency multiplier, be a force multiplier, be a resilience multiplier in disaster situations. So final inferences. These are my personal views. You may agree or disagree, but these are my postulates after having done some application of mind on where exactly we are headed. Today, technology is a democratic weapon, but it has to be on the basis of connected governance. Everybody expects that equity and real democracy should happen and should impact his life or her life. But they also should be connected with the governance mechanism, if not 24/7, almost 24/7. I don't know whether you realize 10 years ago, you would not have 80 crores people being given ration at their doorstep. 80 crores. 13 crores farmers getting their allowance in their bank accounts directly every month. Because of direct benefit transfer, all the government schemes going through the digital mode. And you should be all proud, we should all be proud that India happens to be the digital front runner in terms of financial transactions in the world. America is way behind. In such a connected country, I think disaster governance should also be a connected ecosystem based on technology. And some technologies are scaling up very fast, but many are largely experimental. We have Startup India here, Invest India here. The scale is what is required very, very desperately. Otherwise, we might live to regret it. The impact, the effort is there, but the scale is not there. The government's role in scaling up is very, very essential in scaling up standardization and putting systems in place. And the government does not have to go very far. I just talked about the digital reach of the government. It has happened because of the ICT policy, because of the mobile policy, because of the opening up from the stranglehold of one government company called BSNL or MTNL into the entire open market. So now we are one of the most connected populations of the world, not in terms of numbers only, but in terms of the scale. So the scale equation, the scale argument can rest because the government has already done it, except that we have to do it in the space of disasters. And that is where technology can help us. Startup India, Make in India, Invest India are governance catalysts in the right direction. You know what else I want to say. Because today it is not only a connected country, but it's a connected world, where a tech repository and an info base is required, where each country can help and leverage the other's database for its own disaster response, because it is one planet, one humanity, and we are sharing disasters, because one disaster which strikes a country also impacts the rest of the world unfailingly. Make no mistake about it, it impacts the rest of the world unfailingly. So with that spirit, I hope I have conveyed my message. I'm really, I'm not an evangelist just for the sake of it. I really believe, having spent 3 years in the disaster response space, I had a wish list and a dream that things could change, things should change, and India should show the way, as it has shown the way in many other things. And I think it can do it. In the G20, we have said that our spirit with which we are saying it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is a family. We are all digital humanitarians, whether we are in this room or outside. And I would very much like a technology-based internet of disaster resilience, where every disaster response equipment is connected with each other. We can leverage maintenance, we can leverage response, we can leverage combinations of equipment, combinations of men and equipment, man and machine. It should be an internet of disaster governance. Is it possible? Absolutely yes. I'm not only confident about it, I'm very, very wishful, very, very eager that this should happen and India should show the way. So this was my pitch about technologies in disaster management and how India should go forward. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Very descriptive presentation and motivating words linking technology to humanity and further to disaster risk reduction. Definitely, sir, your words will inspire us to perform better and reducing the impact of disaster. May I now request DG sir to present a token of remembrance to our esteemed chief guest. Memento, sir.
You got memento?
Thank you, sir. I would now request Sri Mohsin Shahidi, DIG Ops and Training NDRF, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Surely makes us more excited at the end than perhaps we were at the beginning of this very absorbing and meaningful 3 sessions of the NPDRR pre-event. For the plethora of knowledge and insight that we have gained into the various facets of the issue, I'm sure it will not only keep us in good stead in our quest as a disaster manager, but also help us to take up the futuristic challenges with the required efficiency and efficacy. There's an old saying that if you have a hammer, all problems can be perceived as nails. I'm sure that the insights that we had today, they will provide the much needed hammering effect into the numerous problems in disaster management that we face on day-to-day basis. On behalf of DG and DRF, I take this opportunity to convey our immense gratitude to our chief guest for sharing his vast knowledge and rich experience and enthusing us by his valuable words of wisdom. Thank you, sir, for gracing the occasion and making it truly memorable. I would like to also convey our sincerest thanks to all the moderators, panelists, and our esteemed participants from all the states and UTs, CAPFs, various institutions of national importance to have come here on a common platform to share the knowledge for a better future. Lastly, NDRF conveys gratitude to the co-hosts of this pre-event, namely DRDO, DRDE, Department of Science and Technology, Department of Space, and Agni Mission Invest India, for their valuable support in making this event a grand success. There is an old adage that if you want to walk far, walk together. The time has come for all of us to do a coordinated act in the best interest of the states, UTs, and the nation. We assure you, sir, of our best act together in the times to come. Thank you, Jai Hind.
With this, we have come to an end of today's grand event. I thank one and all for making this event a success. All the dignitaries, participants, and guests are requested to join for tea. Thereafter, DRF officers are requested for photo session with the chief guest. Thank you once again. Jai Hind.
Session